I'm your host and human design guide, Samantha Zagar, and you're listening to A New Narrative. This is my podcast where I tell personal stories, riff on source material, and interview guests. Let's get started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever time it is. Thanks for tuning in. For me, it's the morning. I'm going to sit here with a mug of tea. I'm in the studio, and it's another just totally gray, rainy, cozy. It's a cozy day. I think there's a pattern starting here. Then that doesn't surprise me at all. Conscious Sun Gate 5, always looking for patterns. I think there's a pattern developing here where I'm in the studio on gray days. I don't know why. It just feels good to come in here and get cozy. I think it's because there's so many big windows in here. I get to feel like I'm out in nature without really having to be exposed. Actually, yeah, that's exactly what it is. So hang out with me while I kind of shoot the shit, honestly. Now, where this episode is coming from is a conversation that I had with a friend. Not even a conversation. More of a friend made a comment to me. Hey, Court. Court said she missed the personal shares on Instagram. And what that kind of did for me was it highlighted a little bit about how not my work has changed, but the way that I'm showing my work has changed a little bit. Because on Instagram, I'm quite strategic, as I should be. I'm a strategic mind. I'm a quad left variable, active brain, active body, strategic mind, focus view. I'm a very strategic person. And in my business, I've actually intentionally gotten more strategic recently because I figure, hey, I'm meant to be this way. Let's not resist it. Let's let it happen. Let's see what kind of strategies we gravitate towards. Now, Instagram is a system. It's an app, it's a tool, it's a whatever, but at the end of the day, for me as a projector, Instagram is a system. I'm here to understand systems. I'm here to hack them, find loopholes. Really what I'm trying to do is find any way that something can be more efficient. That's what naturally happens when you turn a projector loose on a system. We start kind of rummaging around everything to find out ways that we can refine it. I don't want to work harder. I want to work smarter. So when I'm on Instagram, now keep in mind, I'm on Instagram because that is how I show up for my business. If I didn't have a business, I don't know if I would show up on Instagram at all. In fact, I don't particularly have any interest in making content or sharing the system of human design outside of it being a marketing tool for my business. You know, when I was painting as a teenager, I wasn't painting human design content, I was painting pictures. I wouldn't just, make myself a human design magazine and flip and read the pages. It is all strategic business for me. In fact, kudos to all of the people out there who have, probably a response to making content that isn't bringing people back to a business. I'm always fascinated by people who choose to share on social media for that. But honestly, if my shares on social media didn't create business for me, I'd be like, yeah, that's a waste of my time. It would be inefficient for me to be on social media, period. I just wouldn't spend my time there. And so knowing that I'm not getting any, personal satisfaction out of what I'm sharing online, it kind of it makes the shares different. It makes them less personal. When I'm sharing on Instagram, the point is to grab people. The point is to grow my audience. The point is to like move people over to my website, move them over to YouTube. Like I'm using Instagram as a strategic tool, truthfully. Now, when it comes to me actually expressing myself, my own experiment, my own integrations, my own processing, Instagram is not the right platform for me. Because when you look at what drives up the algorithm, they're not things that help me express myself. I don't want to type out my self-expression, and I certainly don't want to put it in a carousel. I don't want to make slides out of flat words. I don't like flat words unless they're educational. But I don't like things typed up that are meant to be deeper, in particular emotional. When I was talking to Cord, it just came out like the podcast is the place where I get really personal. And then sometimes I come on here and it's more of like a stream of consciousness. I just let it out. And in letting it out, I let all of you in. I let you into my life. Sometimes I love just emptying out, Sometimes I need to process a lot, get it out of me. And I remember asking in a class I did about a week ago, I asked people where they felt like they could really show up as themselves. Where was the place they were the most honest? And this probably was a solar plexus question. Where aren't they hiding the truth? And, whether it's going to be your mom or your best friend or a diary or what, my answer was my podcast. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that when I prioritize time to record a podcast, it's very intentionally alone. It's vocal. And there isn't a plan. When it comes to my voice, I can't rehearse things because it's clearly inauthentic when it comes out. I don't like that. I don't want that. I need authenticity to come out. I'm not just trying to get words to come out of me. I need real frequency, real truth, real feelings. There's an extreme vulnerability in attaching your voice to something because it's not just reading my words and then projecting my tone onto it. You're hearing my tone. You're getting a lot more out of me when you're hearing my voice. You're getting a lot more of me out of me. Especially those of you who are right beings. You're going to be a lot more frequency sensitive. You're going to recognize the truth of what I'm saying or what I'm trying to hide or, what I'm not ready to acknowledge yet. So my podcast is my most personal content. Now, when I talked about getting more strategic in my business, part of this was instead of just expressing something and then trying to find a place for it, I am being more intentional. When I feel a personal pressure, when I feel I don't want to just talk about educational content, or I don't want to just, funnel over to a class, or when I'm I want to talk about me. I want to talk about me. That's always going to be here. It's here on the podcast. I can see YouTube becoming more personal in the future, like a vlog. However, you have to be pretty popular for people to give what. I don't think I'm popular enough for people to really care to see a vlog of what I'm up to in a day, and maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe that's the most popular, interesting content I'll ever do, and I have some other block in the way. So many things to reveal themselves to me. Now, sometimes when I want to share personal things, I kind of get all of these, it's almost like asking a classroom, okay, who has something to share today? And then all of the kids put up their hands and it's ooh, me, I have something to share. And so suddenly all of these parts inside of me that want to get something out, that want to be asked, that want to be recognized, that want attention, they start putting their hands up ooh, pick me. And so I'm now kind of like the teacher overviewing these eager beaver aspects inside of myself going, which one of these am I gonna let open up? Sometimes I need a bit of direction. And one of the things that I have found really helpful for my direction is reviewing my own content, but allowing myself to bring the personal perspective to it. So one of the last pieces of content that I posted, the title of it says, "Where to look for what you need to know." So this is very directive content on Instagram. Like, if you want to learn this, look here. If you want to learn this, look here. It's very dry. It's very unemotional. It's very unpersonal, but it is really, really helpful. It is really helpful. One of the things that I've realized about my helpful content. It's funny that I'm saying helpful, because I went through a little bit of a phase recently, kind of like rebelling against educational content, because my motivation is innocence motivation. It is not here to educate. It's not need and it's not desire motivation. And I know that. So sometimes I look at things and go, okay, I'm not here to educate, but it doesn't mean that I'm not still educational. Like, there's still many ways to learn from me. What I realized though, and this was really great, because like I let my own natural flow happen. I realized that I realized my content was shifting. There was a more natural flow to it. There was an easier design. There was a more consistent symmetry in some of the rebranding elements I've done, and these were naturally coming out of me. And as they're naturally coming out, I'm able to identify certain patterns in them. And so I've noticed that the last handful of posts I've done have been what I would actually call very educational, like really educational. But the thing that is different in my educational content is I've removed anything that says like, you should do this, or try to do this, or it's wrong to do this, or it's incorrect to do this. I've removed any kind of like why or ethic or instruction or like, it's completely unbiased. And so what I'm actually acknowledging here is the six element to my content. Because while my content does provide a level of education, I almost like just can't not do that being a projector. I'm literally here to guide. But my educational content doesn't have any like emotional leverage. It's not, here's the right thing, and you should feel bad if you don't do it that way, or you're stupid if you don't do it that way, or why would you do any way other than this? Like, there's no telling people what to do with it. It's simply laying information in front of them, and honestly, then observing what they do with it. I really, really appreciate some of the material about the 6 being not the final judge. I'm really like segueing all over the place. I'm like, now that I'm getting tangential, I know that I found my groove a little bit. There's a story that Ra tells about the difference between the 5 and the 6. And the 5 goes into a group of people and says, you know, God has told me that it's going to rain and that there's going to be a flood. And they go and they try and tell all of these people. Now, the 6, you know, is the wise one up on the hill. Detached, aloof, able to see things. Now, when the people of the town come to the 6 and they say, hey, this 5 is telling us that it's going to rain, there's going to be a flood, we're going to drown, we should build a boat. What they're doing is they're looking to the 6 to say, can you validate what the 5 is saying? Can you lend credibility to the 5? And if the 6 goes, yep, looks like rain, then the 5 gets their credibility and everybody builds the boat. But if the 6 goes, nope, clear skies, I don't see any rain, then everybody in the town turns on the 5. And this is what we call like burning the heretic at the stake. They get burnt at the stake because they don't live up to the projection. And so the 6 has some, to me, when I heard that, I felt a deep role, but I really felt a deep responsibility. As in, it is my job to be detached, aware, aloof, unbiased and observant. I need to be able to see so that when I get asked the question, I can tell the truth. I can give my objective perspective. And so, well, I'm not need motivation. I'm not here to educate that way. I recognize that what I provide is a really, really detached, aloof, unbiased observation, perspective, awareness on what things are. You know, I made content the other day, and slide 1 is, if I want to know how to engage with the world, I need to know my strategy. There's no emotional leverage there. It's just a factual statement. Emotional leverage would be, you know, if I want to know how to engage with the world, I need to know my strategy or I'm failing. You know, like, it adds a feeling to it. I'm not looking to add a feeling. Like, if you're correct, you will use your strategy to engage with the world. Like, that's almost sounds like, not like an order or an ultimatum. It doesn't make it feel like it's my choice or an experiment. I want to be given things to play with, not told how to play with them. Okay. Now, it would take me 15 minutes to ramp up to where I think this conversation might be going. I want to go through that content. And I want to talk about me, if anything comes up for it. Because, you know, I want to make this a little bit more personal. I love giving you the opportunity to get to know me. Because I recognize a lot of my business, a lot of my content doesn't really let you know who I am. And who I am, honestly, isn't really relevant in the work that we're going to do together. I'm a guide for you. I'm here for you. But today, in this moment, I'm here for me. And I'm expressing myself. So number 1, if I wanted to know how to engage with the world, then I need to know my strategy. My strategy as a projector is to wait to be invited. If I wanted to engage with the world, I need to know how to wait to be invited. Engagement means, like, how am I interacting with the world? And if I want to interact with the world in an energy efficient way, in a successful way, then I need to know my strategy. Because if I wait to be invited, I'm not going to insert. I'm not going to put my, oh, I really went down in smartness of words there. I'm going to put myself. Distracted. Man, I lose my focus so easy. Hold on. I'm going to get myself back here. If I wait to be invited, then I'm not going to be putting myself in places where I'm not wanted, where I have to work extra hard to be heard and be seen, where I'm likely coming across as more of an annoyance than a guide. If I come across as annoying, I'm definitely going to think that I don't have the same value as I do when I'm being invited. Yeah, it diminishes my value very quickly, and that diminishes my success. Nothing but bitter town. I think I just had to learn that feeling I experienced most of my life of bitterness, of being left out, of, you know, these feelings of just not being wanted, not being good enough, not being required, not being useful, not being needed, not being, it's so sad that those things can be so personal and you really think that you're not valuable rather than recognizing, like, oh, this person just doesn't need the value that I have. They need something different. I'm not for them. Simple as that. Number 2. I'm like, nah, I just want to move on to the next one. Number 2. If I want to know how I process information, I need to know my variable configuration. This is so big for me. You know, and it's not like finding out I was a projector wasn't a big thing for me. It's just kind of like, you know, 3-4 years in, it's kind of old news. Yeah, I'm a projector. Variable configuration is still really interesting to me. Mostly because right now I'm talking to a psychiatrist because I have functioning challenges. That's probably the best way to put it. I have functioning challenges. And I didn't necessarily realize that they were functioning challenges. I present as a very, very... Well, I'm very good at presenting a certain way. I've learned to present a certain way. I'm so good at presenting a certain way. I'm like a little bit... I'm not used to me being me. That's a weird thing to say. I'm not used to me being me. I'm used to me being what won't get me in trouble. That's a really good way of saying I'm used to being what won't cause conflict. I think being me will cause conflict. I'm not sure these are true statements. I'm just kind of like processing them out loud. Is that what it is? Is this an undefined solar plexus thing? Am I afraid that me being me will lead to conflict? Yes. I'm also aware that the people I'm projecting onto that I think will bring me conflict if I try to be me, I think that's a lie. I think I'm projecting onto people that they will create conflict for me if I try and be me. I think I'm creating conflict for myself because I don't know how to be me, which makes me extra sensitive about being me, which makes me very reactive about how people handle me being me, which makes me prioritize or create a very strong preference for being alone, which makes me think that I have to alienate myself in order to be myself. I'm aware that I think that, so I intentionally keep people around, even though I struggle to be myself when they're around, because I'd rather work through my own struggle than succumb to the thing that I know is going to alienate and likely exacerbate my problem. Oh, that was some interesting processing. The more that I'm me, the more that people are like, you're a weirdo. But like, the more that I let myself be a weirdo, the more that I like myself. The more that I'm like, you're a weirdo. I think it's because it makes me more interesting, even to me. Normal people are boring people. Because normal people don't exist. Normal people are just homogenized people, and that's very, very boring. There's nothing unique or different. There's a very good chance that the more unique and different I am, the more attractive I'm going to become. But everything in my conditioning says that is not the case, so it's freaking out a little bit. Processing noises. Being quad left is a really, really, really thing. It's a really interesting thing for me to try and suss out. Active brain means it never stops functioning, and never stopping thinking can feel like racing thoughts, obsessive thoughts, loud thoughts, fast thoughts. What do they call them? Sometimes like catastrophic thinking. I get catastrophic thinking sometimes. So that's nice. Then I have this active body. So my active body presents as very fidgety, needing to move. I present like literally one of the questions is, do you act as if driven by a motor? And I'm like, that question is fucking hilarious, according to human design. I'm like, yeah, there are 4 motors in the body graph. There are a lot of us that are going to identify feeling like we're driven by a motor, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have too much energy or bad energy. Most of us just need the right thing to use our energy on. I think the way that energy feels in our body is the way that energy is supposed to feel in our body. It's more about finding the appropriate thing to channel it into. That's the hardest thing in life. Not getting rid of the energy. I don't know if you can get rid of the energy. You got to find the way to use it the right way. Okay, then there's that strategic mind. So it's always trying to like one step, rearrange, formula, rearrange, but what's next? But what if this happens? But what if? But then I could. Well, what if here's the plan. Here's the step. Here's the next step. What are the next 12 steps? Yeah, so that's how I look at organizing information. I'm always trying to organize information. And then focus. My eyes fixate on things. Focus. Oh, something grabbed my focus. Oh, something grabbed my focus. Oh, something grabbed my focus. One of the things that I'm exploring with focus vision right now is when I'm in my living room, I have two mirrors on the wall at like face height. Now, if I'm looking forward at the TV and then I go to turn backwards to talk to Corey while he's in the kitchen, my eyes will like go past these 2 mirrors. And of course the Manifestor, calling me out on things, informing me of things that he sees. The other day we're talking, and I turn and I say something to him, and I go back to the TV. He asks me another thing. I turn and I talk to him, and then he goes, hold on. Just keep doing the thing. So he keeps asking me questions, and I turn and I talk to him. And he goes, okay, I've been tracking you do this consistently. He goes, you were unable to turn your head without looking at yourself in the mirror. And immediately I feel this like, because I feel like I'm being called a narcissist. And as someone with a defined ego, people that don't understand the ego will definitely project onto it that it is more like, oh, your big ego, that you're id, you're narcissistic, you're self-driven, self-focused, self-obsessed. And I'd like to think that I'm not. I mean, I'm totally open to debate on this one if I'm not seeing myself well, but I'm pretty sure that I'm not. And so this is, like, there's what people observe, and then there's the mechanical explanation for things. And so my mechanical explanation that I would love to provide to the Manifestor if he asked me to, but I've learned not to talk to the Manifestor about human design unless he's particularly asking a question or showing interest in it. But it's I think it's focus. I think it's not only the quad left, but I think it's the focus view. I think when I turn my head to the side, my focus, not only do I grab my own gaze back at me in the mirror because it's off-putting to scan past my own eyeballs, it's literally like getting smacked with my own aura. Actually, I wonder if it kind of feels that way. It feels a little bit like, ugh, because there's this awkward moment when I scan by that like, ugh, I caught myself looking at me. I'm not looking in the mirror like zoned out, twirling my hair, like I'm not seducing myself. I'm not flirting with myself. I'm more like, there I am. Like it's, I'm like caught off guard that I'm looking at me. But I also think that as I'm scanning, like I'm literally scanning everything in that view until I get to the object I'm trying to look at, and then I scan back. Scan back, focus on the person talking to me, scan back to the TV, and I think I'm like, plant, tree, dresser, mirror, me, wall, hanging, counter, person, oh hi, focus, and then I go back again. Like that's what it feels like my view is doing, is like it focused on 15 different things in the 1 second span it took to turn my head. Hyper focus. It's really intense. This is funny. I don't even know if I'm not gonna get through all 9 slides. It's been 27 minutes of me just rambling. Although it has felt really good to do this. Okay, slide 3. If I want to know how I make decisions, I need to know my authority. Spleen. Spleen is my authority. Now, everybody's authority is different, not only because it lives in different places in the body graph, but everybody's authority is going to feel, like actually, the signals that you're going to get from your body are going to feel very, very different. And if you're splenic, the signal that you're really looking for is this healthy? As in, like, is my body open to taking this in because this is good for me, it's going to boost my health? Or should I keep this away from me because it's toxic? You can have a toxic relationship, you can have a toxic food, you can have toxic water, you can have toxic environments. My spleen is kind of always, it's like the question never stops. Is this healthy? 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 And if I know that it's not healthy, then I know that it's clogging up my ability to be more discerning about health in the future. Like every unhealthy thing I do is going to degrade my discernment. Every increasingly healthy thing that I do is going to increase my discernment. When I was trying to tune in for the it's a whisper and then it goes away and you never hear it again, I was trying to tune in for these like creepy, subtle, soft kind of signals. Spleen is subtle so that it can alert you without alerting everything else. But spleen is really asking, is this healthy? Should I hold on to this? Or should I let this thing go and get it away from me because it's unhealthy? Number 4, just moving on fast through these ones. If I want to know where my body feels best, I need to know my environment. I was very, very fortunate when the pandemic happened. I'm very fortunate because of all the environments There are 6 main environments, but each environment can be broken into 2 subcategories of environment, which overall makes 12 environments. Of those 12 environments, as far as I'm concerned, I got the number 1 best environment for anybody going into lockdown in a pandemic: internal markets. My home is the best place for me, especially when I work from home. Working from home is the least resistance I'm ever going to experience in terms of my work success. And that is true. It is true with human design, and it is not just true with human design. When I was very, very young, like we're talking 12, 13 years ago, I made $10,000 at home in a month, and I repeated it a couple of times because I was doing something illegal. We'll just end it there if you don't know the story. Well, maybe I don't need to out all of my secrets online. Anyway, I was doing something. And it was because I was working from home. Now, here's the other thing. I was also studying. I was a projector and I was studying. I was going to university. And while I was going to university, I was recognized and invited into another part-time home-based activity. God, you know what? I'm just going to have to say it. Otherwise, I'm like, people are going to fill in the gaps with terrible things. It was marijuana related. We'll just say that. It was marijuana related. And I did really, really, really well. And that validated for me that, like, I could be home and make a bunch of money. I could make money while I was studying. No, I didn't know those things at the time. I didn't know I was doing my mechanics well. I was just doing them, right? But I have more experience than just with human design of everything going according to the way the mechanic says that they're supposed to. You know, when I'm in my right environment, when I'm working from home, it has been and always will be the best I've ever done financially. Number 5, if I want to know how to nourish myself, I need to know my determination. This is a fascinating one because you can't do this from the mind. And I used to get so peeved when I would hear older human design students say this, like people with more experience, because, you know, we say, like, don't just jump into PHS. People love to jump into PHS. They're like, oh, I just found out I'm a generator, and I have sacral authority, and I'm a 4th line profile. Oh, and I'm cold thirst. And I'm like, uh-oh, we're in trouble. Because what people will want to do is they want to use determination like it's a new fad diet type, without also understanding, like, the pain their body is about to go through by implementing this new diet type. Your determination is the way that you were meant to eat from your origin. And so, you know, you might be 20 years old, probably not though. You might be 35 years old, good chance. That's mostly my demographic. You could be 45 years old. You could be 60, finding human design and going, oh my goodness, I have not been eating the way that I'm designed to. Well, it's going to take a while to undo that. I mean, think about pregnancy. You know, it takes 9 months to build your baby. It takes a long time to revert your body back, and your body ultimately is never going back to pre-baby phase. There's only so much we can do with these bodies if we fed them inadequately for decades. You can't just start eating the way that you think is the right way to be eating. It's more about pay attention to what your determination is and see just what your natural habits are that support that. In particular, see what happens when you're alone. A lot of us think that who we are is the version of us that's always with other people. Like, let's say you're a mom in your 30s listening to this podcast, and maybe you have 2 kids and a partner, and you're always with one of those kids or a partner, or sometimes you're with all of them, and sometimes you're even more than that because you have family and friends that come over. And you're surrounded by people all the time. So the you that you think that you are is also, it's not totally you. It's you plus you and all this other stuff. You know, think about when you're really alone. I don't know when the last time was that you were really alone. And in particular, alone for a couple of days at a time. Like, you know, imagine you went to an Airbnb for a week by yourself. How would that change what kind of food you would pack? I'm very curious to know how your eating would change if you were just alone for a long period of time. That's one of the first things to pay attention to, is just like what kind of habits are waiting to come out of you when you're not being overly influenced by other people. I would definitely start there. When I'm not overly influenced by other people, especially if I don't feel like I have to support anybody else through food, if I only have to support myself through food, I don't want to spend a lot of energy on food. While I love to eat food and I love the taste of food, I don't like to spend a lot of energy making food. So, mine being a first color consecutive, number one, determination, it's naturally simple. Simple works for me because it really doesn't require a lot of cooking effort. My natural inclination to not put a lot of effort into my food, a lot of the food that's available for that are very simple foods, which are naturally better for me. Okay, number 6. If I want to know how to reading that one wrong. If I want to know how to decondition myself, I need to know my definition. What I mean by that one is, what is my definition? I have 2 defined centers. I have 7 undefined centers. If I want to decondition, I'm going to pay a lot of attention to those 7 undefined centers. You even heard me process one of my undefined centers earlier, my undefined solar plexus. And I uncovered a little narrative in there that says, if you are yourself, it's going to not only create conflict, it's going to create conflict that breaks a bond. So unless you want to constantly break bonds, you're going to have to learn how to be something other than what you are. Which is a lie. It's a lie. It's garbage. It's bullshit. I know that. Still have to integrate that, though. Number 7. If I want to know how I see the world, I need to know my view perspective. This one's a tricky one. My view perspective is 6th color, personal view. That means I see everything from my own perspective, and that can definitely add to me not wanting to come across as narcissistic, self-involved, only seeing things from my own personal perspective. But personal is really just relatable. I never really looked at things from my perspective. Well, I tried to look at things from my perspective my whole life because that's correct for me. But I was always very easily swayed by my transferred view, which is power. And when I'm looking at things through power, what I'm really looking at is not how things relate to me, but how things are for the other and whether or not they're fair. What are the power dynamics at play? And so, something simple like wanting to say as a young teenager, my mom's boyfriend sexually abused me around the age of 11. Now, I did not get the support that I needed from anybody. And when I was 15, I was volunteering at a school, and I don't know why that day was the significant day that it was, but when I left the school, I had to wait at a bus stop, and the bus stop was right outside the police station. And so I stood outside the police station waiting to catch a bus, and then I just found myself inside the police station saying that I wanted to press charges for sexual child abuse. And I proceeded to go through with that. And then I went home. And in the amount of time it took me to ride the bus from the police station to home, the police had called my mom and talked to her about what I had just done, and talked to her about about the fact that I was there to press charges. And so when I came home, my mom was sitting there with her now husband, but he was either just a boyfriend or just a fiance at the time. And she told me that the next day I would be going back to the police station to lift the charges because she was afraid that the man I had just filed charges against, her ex-boyfriend, she was afraid that he would have nothing left to lose if these charges went through. She was afraid that I was going to take a man in a not good spot and put him in a really bad spot, and that in his anger over that, he would retaliate and he would cause further harm. But my mom's example was that she would drive past him on the way to work, and because he would have nothing left to lose, he would ride her off the road and she might die. And then how would I feel knowing that my mom had just died? Now, some interesting things I want to tie into this. That might be the first time I've been able to tell that story with very little emotion. I'm not emotional right now. In fact, the strongest sense of emotion that I have right now is knowing how my audience will have heard that and what they're going to think about my mom. Because that story makes my mom sound fucking terrible. That is not my mom's greatest moment of parenting. Now, the point of that story is power view. The point of that story is that I have personal view. But every time I try and share personal view, I'm immediately pushed into this transference of power view of what's not fair. You know, when I went back the next day and lifted the charges, it was because my mom didn't think it was fair to her. It had nothing to do with whether or not it was important to me. It really hurts me to think about that time in my life where I was really just not seen. It's very clear to me, like, how hard it is to be ourselves. You know, whenever you're ready to be yourself, be prepared for the universe to punch you in the face and be like, are you sure? Trying to be yourself, deciding to be yourself is not the hard part. It's getting punched in the face and then deciding it's still worth it to try again. That's the hard part. Sometimes I feel like I get punched in the face every single day. But it also makes me feel like one of those, like, blow-up, weighted clown punching things from, like, the 50s. I don't even know what these things are. There's, like, you know what I'm talking about. It's like a blow-up, bop it kind of thing, and you hit it, and it, like, falls down, and then it just pops right back up, and then, you know, Chumbawamba. I get knocked down, but I get up again. I'm not a singer. Don't judge me. Chumbawamba, man. That tub thumping. I get knocked down and I get up again. That was one of my favorite songs when I was like 8 years old. Because it's true. And that's a little bit of the ego in me. Like, I can come back swinging. I'm really proud of myself for that. There's that ego. Totally. I'm proud of myself for that. Ooh, I can feel the emotion in the voice. Anybody with right arrows right now picking up that frequency is like, yeah, she's trying real hard to keep it together. It's really hard to maintain my personal view and to think that it's good enough and that it's valid enough. People will use extreme situations to try and distract you and distort what you're supposed to see. But I have these experiences to look back on and know this and validate this. And in summary for that one, like, sometimes my mom listens to these and I'm not concerned about my mom listening to this and hurting her feelings, because there's nothing untrue about what I said. In fact, what I really appreciate is, if anything, my mom's going to hear this podcast and, well, she's going to feel like my mom will. I know that she would feel really sad hearing that. I know that she's not going to. I know that she would do differently now. She would do better now. And because I know that she would do differently now, I look at her now. You know, I don't look at her as as the mother that I had when I was 15. She's the mother that I have now that I'm 33, and she gets credit for that. But there were some times that were really, really, really challenging. All right, number 8, jeepers. Whole emotional roller coaster over here. Number 8, if I want to know how I get distracted, I need to know my transference. I feel like we just did that one. You know, really my motivation transference is desire, but transference is anything that's 3 numbers across. My first color determination transfers to a 4th color. My second color environment would transfer to a 5th color. My 6th color motivation will transfer to a 3rd color. My 6th color view will transfer to a 3rd color. Transference is not how we see clearly. It's very, very distracting. Number 9, and where I'm ending, if I want to know who I think I am, I need to know my personality profile. This one seems like a great one to end on, because who I think I am is a 3. Who I think I am is a martyr. Who I think I am is someone who has to learn everything through trial and error. And all of this is true. That is who I am. There's also this whole other side of me that I don't have conscious access to. I am a 6. I am a role model. I am on the roof. I am observant. I don't just learn the hard way. Because after I learn the hard way, I make it perfect. I'm more likely to see myself as a failure. I'm more likely to be very, very, very afraid of failing because I'm a 3rd line. But I do have this whole other opposite harmonic side of me. I don't need to be as worried about failure as I think that I do, because I recognize that's how my 3rd line is meant to think about things. Also, as a projector whose signature is success, the fear of not being successful is the fear of failure. Not only am I afraid of failure as a projector, but I'm afraid of failure as a 3rd line. But I also know that I can only consciously access half of me. So when I go, Sam, you're afraid of failure, I'm like, yeah, but that's not all of you. That's just a piece. We can't give it too much power. We can't give it too much credit. We accept that we will always be afraid of failure. And because of that, we're always going to keep trying to do the thing that's not going to end up in the failure. And in that, I recognize and appreciate my resiliency. This ability to keep trying. You know, I get knocked down, but I always get back up again. Not only do I get back up, but I'm coming back swinging. I feel like I'm in a swinging phase right now. Not a fight for something, but like I'm feeling powerful right now. I'm feeling like I've got momentum. I feel like I'm moving through things. I feel like I'm consuming things. I feel like things are starting to really, really move for me. Now, I've been through this a few times in my life. Things go really, really, really intensely. And they slow down a little bit so I can process and catch up with myself. And then they go really big again, bigger than they've ever gone before. And then at some point, like, I'll have to recalibrate to that new level. Things will slow down a little bit as I get used to it. And then they go again. You know, I ran my business really well for a couple of years. And then things started to slow down just a little bit so that I could kind of look around and go, okay, what else are we doing here? What's next? You know, and that's where I started to bring YouTube in. So YouTube is a whole new thing I'm doing in my business. It's taking a lot of time, a lot of attention, and yet it's something that feels amazing for my variable configuration. I'm learning so much about how my variable functions through the process of learning, executing YouTube. Yep, I'm out of steam. 50 minutes. This has been absolutely lovely. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for listening to me in all of my sounds and phases and reflections and processing. And I'm just really grateful that I have a place where I know that I can I can show up and be me. And so all y'all that like the more personal side of things, I appreciate that you are here with me. I'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging out. If you want more of me, you can find me at www.samzagar.com or on Instagram @samzagar. See you next time.